The year is 1932, and the United States is in a bad place. The unemployment rate and the GDP are both close to the absolute worst that they are going to be throughout the Depression. With everything in absolute turmoil, there is one good thing happening this year, and that's because it's an election year. The 1932 election saw Herbert Hoover and Franklin Roosevelt fight for the presidency of the United States. When the election was over, Franklin Roosevelt came out on top with 472 electoral votes as compared to Herbert Hoover's mere 59 votes. With this, the stage was set for the New Deal to be put into place. All that was left was to wait until Inauguration Day, which was March 4th, 1933, to start implementing the new plan.
This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance. In every dark hour of our national life, a leadership of frankness and of vigor has met with that understanding and support of the people themselves, which is essential to victory. And I am convinced that you will again give that support to leadership in these critical days.
When Franklin Roosevelt got into office in 1933, he didn't waste any time at all in trying to push his New Deal into action. Within the first 100 days in office, Roosevelt pushed through a record-breaking 15 pieces of legislation through Congress. These pieces of legislation completely changed the trajectory of the United States, from a country with an extremely small federal government to a country with a much larger and expanding government that was willing to step in to help the economy during the Great Depression. With the expanded government, there came many new institutions that were created during the New Deal. Many of these institutions are still really important and are being used today, like Social Security and the FDIC programs, while others were only used for a short amount of time as a way to help create jobs and get the economy out of the Depression, like the Public Works Administration and the Works Progress Administration, that both ceased operations in 1943. One of the ways that Franklin Roosevelt helped the economy came just a few days after entering office, on March 6, 1933, when he declared a bank holiday. A bank holiday is when banking transactions are suspended throughout the length of the holiday, and Franklin Roosevelt used this period to enact a new law called the Emergency Banking Act. The law was passed through both houses of Congress incredibly fast and paved the way for banks that were still solvent to reopen, and to assist banks that were no longer solvent reopen. It wasn't until June 16, 1933 that the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, also called the FDIC, was created by the Glass-Steagall Banking Reform Act. As the name suggests, the FDIC was insurance for depositors that put their money into banks. It allowed for a new founded security in the banks because with the FDIC, the government promised to refund losses up to a set amount. And that amount has slowly increased as time has gone on to accommodate inflation. In 1935, what was known as the Second New Deal began to be rolled out, and with it many of the aforementioned programs like Social Security and the WPA were rolled out. There were other programs that came out at this time as well, but one of the more important ones had to do with unions. This law was named the National Labor Relations Act, but was also called the Wagner Act. It created the National Labor Relations Board, which had the job of overseeing union elections, and making sure that companies and businesses were treating their employees properly. Even with all these new laws, stimulus, and spending that the government was doing, it didn't have the desired effect Franklin Roosevelt wanted, which was to get the economy back on track. While the GDP rose and the unemployment numbers did go down during the early years of his presidency, it never got back to pre-Depression levels until after 1943, which was 2 years after the United States had entered World War II. All in all, it's hard to say whether or not the New Deal was a success or not, because it's still a highly debated topic with many economists questioning the level to which it helped the Depression. The New Deal did, however, have a resounding effect on the United States as a whole, with many of the things that Franklin Roosevelt started all those years ago still being around and thriving today.